Okay, so let's be real for a second. Work meetings, am I right? They often feel like these huge productivity black holes, right?
Yeah.
Just sucking up all this time and energy with very little in return. But what if, instead of just accepting this as like the normal work-life thing,
Yeah.
what if we actually tried to flip the script? We've got this whole stack of articles here about rethinking work meetings, and I'm super curious, like what actionable strategies we can actually find.
Yeah, and just glancing at the stack, I'm already noticing a theme, a big one. It's like this focus on intentionality and also just strategic decision making. It's not necessarily about like getting rid of meetings altogether,
Yeah.
but rather about being way more discerning, like when do we actually meet and what are we actually trying to get out of it, you know?
So let's cut through all the BS. What are we actually trying to get done with a work meeting? Like, when does a meeting actually make sense?
One of the articles, it breaks it down like this. It says that a good meeting, a good work meeting, it should give you some clear decisions and actions that are assigned to people, and then increase clarity for everyone involved. It should also help with efficiency, like by getting rid of all that back and forth, all that email or chat stuff.
Right.
And ideally, it should make everyone feel a little bit more connected, as a team.
Okay, so alignment, clarity, taking action, and connection.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So this article also talks about what a meeting is not for. Like things like just status updates or reviewing a document or just like venting. All stuff that, let's be honest, we've probably experienced in meetings that could have easily just been an email.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, right? Like those types of things that you just mentioned, those are often much better suited for asynchronous tools, right? Like,
Right.
Why would you pull everybody into a meeting when you could just send a quick message or share a document, right? I think a lot of these articles are pushing back against just defaulting to meetings for every little thing.
And that brings us to, I think, a pretty radical concept. One of these articles is proposing something called on-demand meetings. So instead of having these recurring meetings, the ones that happen no matter if they're needed or not, this idea is to call a meeting only when something specific happens, a specific trigger. Right. It could be a critical decision that needs to be made or a complex problem that needs some brainstorming or even, a roadblock that needs attention right away.
Yeah, I definitely get the appeal of that because think about it. Recurring meetings, they often lose their purpose after a while, right? They become these rituals that people just like attend out of obligation, even if there's nothing really to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not just a waste of time, right? I feel like that just breeds meeting fatigue and resentment too. You know what I mean?
Big time. And with on-demand meetings, it's like you're forced to ask the question, do we really need to meet right now? Or can this be handled, asynchronously? Like it's about being really intentional with everybody's time and how you're collaborating.
But even though, I totally agree that recurring meetings can easily just become stale and unproductive, I do wonder, like, what about going fully on demand? What could be the downsides to that? Like, what about those spontaneous ideas, the ones that happen when a team gets together regularly or, just building rapport and trust just from casual conversations?
That's a good point. It's really about finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
This article does acknowledge that recurring meetings can still be really valuable, but only in certain situations. Like, for example, a weekly check-in with your team, as long as it has a clear purpose and a flexible format. That could be a good opportunity to maintain team cohesion and make sure everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, I agree. The key is to just always be evaluating, like, what is the purpose of these recurring meetings that we have? And are they actually effective, right? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are people engaged? Is there, like, maybe even a better way to achieve the same outcome?
So it's not just about saying on-demand meetings are the solution to everything. It's more about just being, more mindful, more strategic about how you use your time together as a team.
Exactly. And let's shift gears for a bit. Maybe look at a context where meetings are like just constantly happening. Agile methodologies. Agile in theory is all about being fast, flexible, right? But frameworks like Scrum and SAFe, sometimes they can actually lead to feeling like you have too many meetings.
It's true. You've got your daily stand-ups, you've got your sprint planning sessions, backlog refinement meetings, sprint reviews, and of course, if you're doing SAFe, those PI planning events, which can be huge. And I mean, each meeting has its purpose. I get that. But when you add it all up, all that time commitment can be kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, and one of these articles actually suggests that having too many of these types of meetings can hinder agility. Like it's creating this thing that they call coordination overhead. So think about it this way. If you're spending like hours every single week just trying to get everybody's schedules aligned and preparing for all these meetings, that's time that you're not actually spending like doing the work.
Yeah. That makes sense. And like, just to illustrate that, think about trying to schedule a 30-minute meeting with, let's say, 10 people, right?
Yeah.
You could easily spend an hour, maybe even more, just on emails and calendar invites. That's exactly what coordination overhead is. It's inefficient and it's just frustrating for everyone.
Exactly. And that's where this article brings up another methodology, Kanban. So this approach, it takes a much leaner view of meetings and it focuses on making sure that we're minimizing those coordination costs while also like maintaining flow.
So instead of having those rigid sprint cycles that kind of dictate when those meetings are going to happen, Kanban teams, they do this thing called the pull-based planning approach. So the work, it's planned dynamically, and it's based on like the team's capacity and the flow of work.
And that means that they often can get away with way fewer meetings. Daily stand-ups might just be replaced with these like asynchronous check-ins. Sprint planning might happen just when they need it. And like even those sprint reviews and retrospectives, those can just be integrated into how work normally flows.
So it's like you meet when you need to, you know? Like to talk about a problem or make a decision, not just because like the calendar says it's Tuesday at 10:00 a.m.
And a big part of Kanban is that it's very visual, right?
Yeah.
With a Kanban board, and if it's well maintained, everyone on the team, they can see the progress in real time.
Right.
And that reduces the need to have these constant updates and progress reports, you know?
Okay, so I'm noticing a pattern here. Whether it's on-demand meetings or taking a leaner approach to Agile, it seems like the main idea, the main principle here is just to challenge that default assumption. Like the one where we think we always need to be meeting all the time.
Right. And it's about taking a hard look at our meeting habits and then just finding ways to collaborate better without, like, killing our productivity. There are definitely other solutions out there, but we need to, like, step back and think about them a bit more, you know?
For sure. And this leads us to another challenge, one that's especially relevant right now with remote and hybrid work, after-hours meetings. With teams spread across different time zones in this whole always-on culture, it's so easy for meetings to just bleed into personal time.
Oh, yeah. And the consequences, they can be big. Like, we're seeing a lot more burnout, stress, just people being totally exhausted as they try to, like, figure out the boundaries between work and life, you know?
One article even mentions this thing called Zoom fatigue, like that feeling of just being completely drained, exhausted, just from spending hours and hours in virtual meetings.
And it's not even just about being on camera all the time. It's more than that, right?
Oh, definitely.
It's like the cognitive overload from dealing with all those interactions. You know, there aren't natural breaks, and there's this constant pressure to be on. Like, you have to be engaged, even when you're mentally done.
Yeah. And not to mention what this does to our personal lives. I mean, when work meetings are constantly happening in the evenings and weekends, that messes with our sleep, our relationships, our ability to actually recharge.
It's a lot. So what can we do? What can we do to fight back against this whole after-hours meeting thing? The articles have some practical ideas. One that's simple but probably really effective is just to, like, have no meeting days. Or maybe meeting-free blocks of time.
So maybe that means saying, like, Tuesdays and Thursdays are meeting-free. Or maybe it's blocking out time, like saying no meetings before 11 or after 4. And that gives everyone dedicated time for focused work and also prevents meetings from just, like, completely taking over the day.
Right. And another thing is to really prioritize asynchronous communication whenever you can. Like, we have so many tools now that we can use for sharing information, working together without having to actually schedule a live meeting, like Slack, Loom, Notion. There are so many options.
Yeah, and like instead of having a 30-minute meeting to talk about a project update, why not just record a quick Loom video and outline all the main points, right? Share it that way. Everyone can watch it when they have time, and that frees up that meeting time for something that actually needs, you know, a live discussion.
Exactly. And if you absolutely have to have a live meeting, keep it short, you know? Try to keep it at 30 minutes if you can. You'd be surprised how much you can actually get done in a well-structured, focused 30-minute meeting.
Definitely. And this is super important if you have global teams. You have to respect time zones. Maybe that means rotating the meeting times so it's not always the same people having to stay late. Or maybe it means finding different ways to communicate, using those asynchronous tools, and just minimizing the need to have meetings across all these different time zones.
It's about being mindful, being considerate of everyone's time and energy. Even small changes can make a big difference. It can help fight meeting fatigue and just promote a healthier balance between work and life.
So we've gone through some of the potential problems with recurring meetings and how Agile can sometimes lead to having way too many meetings and then those dreaded after-hours meetings. And now I'm really curious about this thing, the 40-second rule.
Me too. What is that? And how can it help us have better meetings?
Okay, so the 40-second rule is all about structure and inclusivity.
Mm.
The idea is that each person, when they're speaking, they get a maximum of 40 seconds to share their thoughts. And then they have to stop and let other people respond.
Oh, interesting. I can definitely see how that would help prevent those long-winded speeches that can sometimes, take over a meeting and just make it feel unproductive.
That's exactly it. It forces everyone to get to the point, right? Be concise, keep things moving. It creates this natural flow. And I think it encourages those who might not normally speak up to actually participate.
That's great. I think it sounds like a pretty simple technique, but it could be really powerful for making sure everyone's voice is heard and the meeting actually stays on topic and productive.
This article also talks about how important it is to have a clear purpose for every single meeting and an agenda. Like, no agenda, no meeting. Simple as that.
Love that. I think that's a great rule to live by. And once you have that agenda, make sure you set time limits for the different topics. Allocate a certain amount of time to each one and use a timer to keep things moving.
And I love the idea of, rotating who speaks. Use a round-robin method. That way, you're making sure everyone gets a chance to talk, even the people who maybe aren't as comfortable speaking up.
And it's also a good idea to have one person who is taking notes, just so you can capture all the important takeaways and decisions in real time, so there's no confusion about what was decided and what happens next.
All really good strategies for having more effective and inclusive meetings. And I mean, one of the easiest ways to improve meetings is to just limit who's there.
Yeah.
Only invite the people who absolutely need to be there. Like, if someone doesn't need to be there for the whole meeting, they can either just opt out or you can just send them a summary afterward.
Totally. And here's a radical thought. What if you meet all the goals of the meeting before it's supposed to end? End it early. Give people their time back.
I like it. All right, let's talk about AI. I'm really interested in its potential to change how we approach meetings.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready for this revolution. Yeah, it feels like AI is just everywhere these days, right? And it's promising to streamline and enhance pretty much every part of work. And these articles are saying that meetings are no exception. Like, AI could potentially help us have fewer meetings and make the ones that we do keep way more effective.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. So how can AI actually help us, escape this meeting vortex that we're all stuck in?
So one area where AI is already making a big difference is in automating all those regular status updates, those things that we always have to do. Tools like Notion AI, Jira AI, and ClickUp AI, they can actually look at project data, analyze it, and then give you these concise little summaries. And that completely gets rid of the need for those repetitive check-in meetings where you're really just repeating information that could have easily been shared in a document.
Oh, I see. So instead of pulling everyone into a meeting that could have been an email, AI just steps in and does all the hard work.
Yeah.
That frees up everyone's time to do more strategic things.
Exactly. And AI can do more than just status updates, right? Think about meeting summaries like AI-powered assistants, things like Fireflies, Otter.ai, and Microsoft Copilot. They can actually transcribe and summarize meetings live as they're happening, which can be super helpful for people who couldn't be there, or even just people who want, a quick overview of what was talked about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've definitely been in those meetings where I was like, I should have just waited for the AI summary. So what else can AI help us with, in terms of streamlining our collaboration?
So another area where AI is doing a lot is asynchronous communication. Tools like Loom, which lets you record those quick video messages, are becoming really popular. And when you combine that with AI assistants like ChatGPT, it's like you can have this constant flow of information without ever having to schedule a real meeting.
I like it. It's like having a virtual assistant who's always there, ready to answer questions, give you updates, and just keep everyone in the loop.
Right. And one of the coolest AI applications that I've seen is something called AI-powered decision logs. So imagine AI that can keep track of all the discussions that happen in meetings, pull out the key action items, and then save all those decisions in a way that you can search later on, like a knowledge base.
Wow, that would be incredible. I mean, think about it. No more endless email chains trying to figure out who's supposed to do what or what was even decided in that meeting 3 weeks ago. Everything would be written down, easy to find.
Exactly. It would save so much time and confusion. But AI can do more than just help us have fewer meetings, right? It can also help us make the meetings that we do keep way more productive.
So we're not just meeting less, we're meeting smarter. I like that. What are some of the ways AI can, boost our meeting performance?
So think about how we create agendas. AI could actually look at past meetings, find common themes, and then automatically make a structured agenda for you that's tailored to the specific goals of that meeting.
That's pretty cool. No more rambling, no more going off on tangents, just a clear plan to have a productive conversation.
Exactly. And to help keep us on track, AI-powered bots could actually make sure we're sticking to the time limits for each topic. And they could even keep track of who's talking too much or too little, which would make things more balanced and inclusive.
I like it. It's like having an AI facilitator, helping us stay focused, manage our time well, and make sure that everyone has a chance to talk.
Right. And then instead of having someone taking notes by hand, which, let's be honest, can be messy and biased, AI could do it automatically, right? It could capture all the main points, the decisions, the action items. That way everyone leaves knowing what they agreed on and who's responsible for what.
Okay, this all sounds super futuristic and cool, but how do we actually put this into practice? How do we start using AI in our meetings?
I think the first thing is to look at all the meetings that you're currently having and think about, okay, which ones could potentially be replaced with, AI-powered solutions? Could a status update be automated? Could a decision be made without having a meeting? Could some people just get an AI-generated summary?
So it's about being smart and intentional.
Right.
Not just jumping on the AI bandwagon for no reason, but really thinking about how these tools can help us achieve what we need to.
Right. And once you've figured that out, then you can start looking at all the different AI tools out there and figure out how to integrate them into what you're already doing, whether it's using Otter.ai to transcribe and summarize, or Notion AI for project updates, or ChatGPT for those routine questions. There's so many tools available right now.
It seems like a big part of this whole thing is encouraging people to think about AI in a different way.
Yeah.
Not as something that's going to take their jobs, but as a powerful tool that can help them work better and more efficiently.
Absolutely. It's about empowering teams to use these technologies and come up with creative ways to include them in their work.
But it's not just about the technology, right? We need to make sure that people are trained on how to use these tools properly and ethically.
Totally. We have to be aware of the potential biases that can exist in AI and make sure that we're using them in a way that's fair, transparent, and inclusive.
It's about finding that balance, using the power of AI, but also keeping that human element in mind, the critical thinking, the ethical considerations, all of that super important for making good decisions.
Yeah, and when we find that sweet spot, when we combine the efficiency and insights of AI with human judgment and empathy, that's when we can really unlock the potential of these tools. To transform our meetings from just time wasters into valuable opportunities to collaborate and make progress.
Oh, that feels like we just went through this whirlwind tour of the world of meetings, from the dangers of recurring meetings to the potential of, working together using AI.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. And I think for me, the main thing I'm taking away from all of this is we actually have a lot more control over our meeting culture than we think we do.
I think that's so true.
Yeah.
We've just gotten so used to defaulting to meetings for every single problem that we forget there are other ways to work together. And sometimes those other ways are even better.
Yeah, and it's not even just about being efficient, right? It's also about making sure we're protecting our time, our energy, and our mental well-being too.
Totally. I mean, when you have too many meetings all the time, that just leads to burnout, resentment, and you can't even focus on the work that actually matters.
Exactly. If we can just be more intentional about when we choose to have a meeting, how we structure it, and how we use technology to work together without actually meeting, we can create a way better work experience for everyone. Something that's more sustainable and more fulfilling.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up. This has been such a thought-provoking look into the world of meetings, and I feel like I've got some really solid strategies that I can actually start using right away.
Me too. It's time to take back our calendars. Remember how great it feels to focus on work, and just remember that meetings should be there to help us, not the other way around.
Couldn't agree more. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's given you some ideas about how to rethink your own meetings and find better ways to collaborate. Now go out there and make those meetings really count.